This is the Ford Bronco Outer Banks, and one of the beautiful things about the one in behind me, it's got the Sasquatch package, and that's the idea behind the video today. I'm going to be going over the Sasquatch package, taking it off-roading a tiny little bit, going to be breaking down each individual feature of the Sasquatch package and answering the question, is it even worth it? Steve here, Cars with Steve, and before I get started, I want to give Formula Ford a huge shout out and a thank you for giving me access to this vehicle to shoot the video for you today. Check down in the description below for their contact details. Now, this is just going to be a video specifically on the Sasquatch package. If you're looking for a breakdown, like how that sync media screen works, looking at the steering wheel instrument cluster, things like that, or if you want a fuller walk around of the vehicle, going over features, dimensions, cargo dimensions, spacing, things like that, check down below because I've put together a comprehensive video on how all those things work as well. But guys, let's have a little bit of fun, dive into this vehicle, and see what's going on with the Bronco Sasquatch package. Now, a few things about the Sasquatch package inside of the Bronco. Firstly, it's available on every single trim level, so it doesn't matter if it's the base or if you're in the fully loaded Wildtrak. You can get this package inside of anything, which is great because there are some incredible features, and if you don't really care about some of the extra niceties, you don't have to worry about spending a boatload of money on a vehicle that has features you don't necessarily want. Because looking at this specific one, this is the Outer Banks, and it's got the Luxe package, which means we've got the 12-inch Sync 4 media screen, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay that are wireless. We've got the reverse sensing system, the full 360 camera, adaptive cruise control, and a boatload of other features. So this one is loaded fairly nicely. Canadian price, we're about $70,000 Canadian. But like I said, the Sasquatch package itself is available essentially as a standalone option, and it does look beautiful. And we're going to start off looking at, well, one thing that's glaring us right in the face, these absolutely stunning Goodyear tires. Now, these are 35-inch tires, and that's going to be the available choice for tire inside of the Sasquatch package. So really, really great looking at off-road as I dig out rocks because of the off-roading I just did. So looking at some of the beauty of what this thing can accomplish, incredible for rock crawling and things like that. Now, on top of that, we've also got these beadlock wheels. Now, these things are very unique, especially when you look at the remaining wheels on every other package, every other trim level of the vehicle. Because looking at the traditional wheel, it's great, but the downside, if you're doing really rugged off-road terrain and things like that with a traditional wheel, the actual tire itself may slip off of the rim. And that's one of the things that this beadlock system gets rid of. It gets rid of the likelihood of that happening because the part of the rim where the rubber essentially meets the rim is locked into place and everything is bolted down. The last thing you want is to be going off-roading and having a freaking tire slipping off of the rim. So if you're going to be doing a lot of serious off-roading, rugged terrain, rocks, things like that, the Sasquatch package might be for you. Now, here's where that's going to depend on what else you're doing with it, because if you're only occasionally using it, and this is going to be your daily driver, I actually would recommend maybe not looking at the Sasquatch package, because one other thing, something we can't see, is the final drive ratio. It gets bumped up to a 4.7 inside of the Sasquatch package, and that's great from an acceleration standpoint because, I mean, the Bronco is great, it's big, it's bulky, but the problem is with the wheels themselves as well, because it needs to propel forward a little bit more, getting that extra added torque with that larger axle ratio. Now, here's the downside. If you're just going to be using this thing primarily as a daily driver, the 35-inch tires here, not going to be very economically friendly on fuel. The 4.7 axle ratio is also going to decrease your fuel economy as well. So if you're going to be using this thing primarily as a daily driver, it might not necessarily be a good idea to get the Sasquatch package. But if you're going to be spending more time off-road, definitely something to consider. A few other things to point out that are going to be part of the Sasquatch package. We've got our fenders there that sit a little bit higher than what we would see inside of the Bronco that doesn't have the Sasquatch package. So if we were to look at just the regular Outer Banks version of the vehicle, fenders do sit up a little bit higher. Now, one thing you can't see from the camera angle here, so let's kind of show you underneath, would be the suspension system. And same idea inside of the Sasquatch package, that suspension is going to sit a little bit higher up. Now, this is going to be the configuration we're looking at. So the Sasquatch package specifically in any trim to get the most ground clearance inside of this vehicle. which is a great thing. Now, you could definitely look at doing some aftermarket solutions, lifts and things like that to give you a little bit more ground clearance if you need it. I mean, overall, I do love the look of this package and definitely useful if you're going to be doing some incredible off-roading with this thing. Now, one other thing to point out, this specific one has the optional modular bumper. Now, one of the big benefits of the modular bumper is exactly that. It's modular, which means that we can literally take off individual pieces of this thing if we need to. And one of the benefits there is if you're going over really rugged terrain and you don't want to end up damaging this thing, you could literally piece by piece take this off to get around a rock that might be in your way or another obstacle, whatever the case may be. So pretty straightforward there, just a few screws in order to be able to take these things off, but it is pretty straightforward to be able to remove it. And it's great that we've got that flexibility, but whether you go for the modular bumper or not is going to be up to you. When you get the modular bumper, you're not going to get fog lamps whatsoever from the factory. You could look at something aftermarket, but if you really want fogs, don't get the modular bumper. But I mean, one of the nice things about some of the packages that this specific one has, like with that Lux package, like I love, we've got that front-facing camera, we've got the cameras underneath the side mirrors, our forward sensing system, so we've got our full 360 camera there as well. There is one thing I wish that Ford would take advantage of. The side view mirrors a little bit differently and get a blind spot monitoring system in there as well. So yeah, like you flip your turn signal left or right, and it would be great if they could utilize that 360 camera, so that side view mirror, in order for us to see what's going on in our blind spot. So Ford's not there yet. I know there are some other manufacturers that do it. I would just love to see Ford utilize that technology they've already got built in. Now we're in the Outer Banks version of the vehicle, which is exciting because it's got some extra niceties and things like that we can't find in some of the other trims, but this specific one is the advanced version of the vehicle. I'll get to why that's exciting in just a second, but there is one thing that's missing from the Outer Banks that you'll be able to find inside of the Badlands, and that's going to be the front stability bar disconnect. So the stabilizer bar disconnect, one of the big reasons why that's a benefit is if you're going to be doing rock crawling. So with that bar disconnect, what's going to happen is it separates the wheels on that front axle. What that means is that each wheel can kind of pull up and down a little bit more. So if you're rock climbing and you kind of have rocks that are sitting a little bit different, as the vehicle's climbing up, one wheel can kind of climb up it while the other one's down to make sure you've still got great traction inside of the vehicle. So if you're going to be going and doing some crazy off-roading, the Badlands might be an option for you. But like I said, we're in the Sasquatch version of the vehicle, which in and of itself is pretty dang nice, because with the advanced version of the Bronco, we've got a series of different buttons along the top here which bring new meaning to what this vehicle can do. So one of the big benefits of the advanced version of the vehicle is that we've got locking differentials. So the buttons on the left-hand side, we've got a front and a rear locking differential. So let's actually look at differentials kind of in a nutshell. So we look at our base open differential. Now that open differential, what that means is that each wheel is going to spin independently of one another. And we're going to find that in the majority of cars. When it comes down to the next stage up, that's going to be your limited slip differential. So the limited slip differential, the idea there is that each wheel still technically is spinning by itself, but if the vehicle determines that one wheel in that axle, so we'll look at our front axle first, if the vehicle recognizes that one of those wheels is starting to slip, it's going to start to put a little bit of extra power towards the other wheel as necessary. So it puts power to whatever wheel necessary in order to limit the slip. Hence the name limited slip differential. So it is nice to know that that is available as an option there. That's typically something we're going to find in a car like the Mustang. So we look at the rear wheel drive vehicle there, it's got the option for that limited slip differential as well. Now, inside of the Bronco, we do have the option to lock out the differential, and that's the next stage of differential. So we've got our open, our limited, as well as our locked. Now, the lock differential, what that'll do is it's going to get the wheels on that axle, whether it's the front or the rear axle, to spin at the same time with the same amount of power. So it doesn't matter if one wheel is starting to slip or not, both wheels will continue to get the same amount of power. So there's definitely a benefit to getting that system, and mostly for off-roading purposes. But you do have the flexibility of being able to lock these things out, which is definitely a nice thing. And then one other button. Love this button. This specific one is going to be our trail turn assist. And what that does is absolutely brilliant. It's going to lock out one of the rear wheels when you're taking sharp turns. So let's say if you're on a trail and you've got to do a quick turn left or right, whatever the case may be, to get either around a bend, away from an obstacle, whatever the case may be, with that mode engaged, we do have to be in our 4 high gear or 4 low in order to make it happen. But if we're in one of those gears with this turned on and we have to make a quick turn, whatever rear wheel is on the inside, the brakes will automatically be applied. I don't want to say it's going to make you do a Tokyo drift, but so it's great to know that we've got that option. I mean, you're not going to want to use it all the time, especially on just like regular day-to-day driving, but if you're doing some crazy in-depth off-roading, it's going to be useful to use that system. The next button over is just our basic traction control. We can toggle that one on or off. And then we've got our 4-way blinkers there as well. And well, folks, that was a look at the Sasquatch package inside of the Bronco. What did you think? Is that overall, if you're not going to necessarily be taking the vehicle off-road that much, the Sasquatch package will probably not be the best idea, the best investment for you. You could look at upgrading other parts of the vehicle instead of looking at the Sasquatch package. But if you're that off-road enthusiast, the die-hard enthusiast, where you're going to get the Bronco for its intended use, which is off-roading, the Sasquatch package advanced system is an incredible option to go for. What did you guys think? If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. More than willing to talk you through any issues that you might be having, answer any questions as well. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your social networks. Subscribe to the channel because it definitely helps out. And until I see you next time, take care.